Implementing Netsuite would have killed my e-commerce business. So let's rewind the clocks. I'm 28 years old. I'm CEO of a multi-million-dollar direct-to-consumer company. They're a great example of what this video is about, which is the modern day e-commerce businesses and the troubles they faced. So we were fast-paced, fast growth, multi-channel. We were managing everything on Google Sheets and point solutions like ShipStation or ClickUp. I became CEO when the company was hitting that critical mass. So my belief of critical mass for e-commerce companies is when the complexity of your supply chain is greater than the processes and the software in place to solve them. That's critical mass for e-commerce companies. So in other words, when you start spinning your wheels on revenue, you just feel like you're caged in, you can't grow. So what does that actually look like? I'll drop some Yoda wisdom here for you guys. It all starts with bad data. So bad forecasting leads to bad purchasing. Bad purchasing leads to bad inventory control. Bad inventory control leads to suffering, or at least really bad decisions made from bad data, which looks like over-purchasing, under-purchasing, focusing on the wrong channels, bad defects in production, overselling, overspending on advertising, etc., etc. So when an e-commerce company experiences this critical mass that I just explained, it will feel like you have two paths to take here. So number one is just ignore all of the new processes or new supply chain improvements that you need and add more products, add new revenue streams. So just spray and pray. Let's try to grow the business more and just ignore all the shit that's happening. Number two is, well, I guess we just need to fix all of our problems and implement Netsuite, or insert another big, hairy ERP system here. Now, this is where I found myself as a 28-year-old CEO. I was like, oh shit, well, I guess I'm just gonna have to implement Netsuite or like some massive system to solve all of my supply chain issues. Here's the problem that you're faced though when you're trying to implement an ERP at a fast-paced, fast-growing e-commerce company. It can be summed up by saying this. These were my thoughts at the time. This better solve all of my problems, and it better work, because if it doesn't, the new friction, new processes, and massive cost will literally kill my business. The funny thing is that the other e-commerce people that I found living in the area who had chosen to implement Netsuite or another big ERP system, they came to me and gave me advice. They whispered to me saying, hey, I implemented Netsuite. It was overkill. It was too expensive. It almost killed my business. I'm also stuck right now, and they keep raising prices year over year. So here's what I realized as a 28-year-old who had been CEO of a direct-to-consumer brand and had a decent background in supply chain management. People don't understand the modern e-commerce business and why they can get so complex so fast. So let's actually get to know this modern day e-commerce business. Who are they? Why do they experience this critical mass so quickly? Here are 3 things that can make a modern e-commerce company experience critical mass so quickly. Number 1, the ability to go multi-channel or omni-channel really fast. Number 2, extremely multifaceted fulfillment methods. Number 3, blurred lines between historically rigid lines and the supply chain. So each of these deserves a breakdown in my opinion. So let's dive in. All right, number 1, the ability to go multi-channel or omni-channel really fast. So historically, there have been really rigid lines for brands to go multi-channel. So for example, let's say there's an inventor, Billy Bob Joe, in the 1990s, and he invents this gizmo in his garage and he starts selling. His path to go omni-channel is very rigid. And it's limited by who he can get the product physically in front of, right? So he might start by selling on a street corner. He might move to a kiosk in the mall. He might then know a buddy that can get him some specialty retail space. And maybe eventually, once he reaches supply chain level 26, he can actually get into a big box retail like Target or Walmart or Home Depot, whatever his gizmo is. It was very difficult back in the day to go multi-channel, and that progression happened slowly and it made sense. The antiquated supply chain and retail industry in general prevented you from blowing up like you can nowadays. Also, the progression of your back-end systems to support you going omni-channel, it made sense. Now, let's take Billy Bob Joe and put him in 2023. He can come up with a product idea easier than ever, sell it on Shopify, move to Amazon, sell it on Walmart.com, sell wholesale, sell on Faire.com, and sell directly to Target, all before he hits $1 million in revenue his first year. What? How? It's crazy. And the worst part about this is entrepreneurs will typically just say yes, 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 yes to all these channel expansions and new revenue opportunities without even understanding the complexities that you just introduced to your data, your fulfillment, your production, etc. So let's sum all this up. There are almost no barriers to entry to go multi-channel today. Young companies can exponentially increase their channel streams without much effort, and extremely young and experienced companies are running into issues as they go omni-channel. Number 2, multifaceted fulfillment. Again, let's go to our entrepreneur example, Billy Joe. So he's in the 90s. Let's say this time he owns a $10 million a year brand. So it's already skipped. What does that normally look like? His distribution is probably pretty straightforward. He's fulfilling retail POs from the same retailer over and over again on the same products. And he's most likely just using like a third-party distribution service that packages and sends everything off at the standard required for these retail stores. The distribution is pretty straightforward. It's get PO from big box retail store, buy from China, send to distribution center, send to retail customers. Rinse and repeat. Super predictable. Nowadays, the rise of multi-channel selling and the adoption of 3PLs at a very young age for these e-commerce companies has opened the door to complex, multifaceted fulfillment at a very young age. So, Billy Joe again. Imagine he's implanted into 2023. That same $10 million a year business, it's multi-channel. He's now chosen to outsource direct-to-consumer fulfillment to a 3PL. He also decided to sell FBA. He also decided to start selling wholesale to specialty retailers. He chooses to do that fulfillment in-house, where he has his own warehouse, so he can have control over that wholesale allocation. Also, let's just throw in some international Amazon selling into the mix. Most brands try to do this nowadays. Holy look at the complexity that you just introduced to your order routing, your min-maxes, your forecasting, your replenishment. It's insane. What in the actual Now go and try to build me a forecast for all of this. Good luck. Number 3, blurred lines in supply chain. So this is how the shift to e-commerce has blurred historically rigid supply chains. So let's pull up this basic, stupid chart that illustrates the basic flow of goods from the factory to the consumer. So as you can see, everything was super predictable, rigid, starts with a factory, maybe goes to an importer, maybe goes to a distributor, wholesaler, retailer. Super predictable. The modern e-commerce brand has now blurred every single one of these lines. So in decades past, specific entities, even businesses, existed to handle these checkpoints in the supply chain. Now the modern day e-commerce brand, they can do any one of these things. They routinely have direct relationships with their factory. They'll even just start selling wholesale on a whim. They of course have bypassed the modern day big box retail business, and they sell direct to their consumer. So this, of course, introduces complexity into the supply chain. One example is direct-to-consumer brands will routinely choose to purchase raw components and do some sort of light assembly manufacturing just to save costs and gain control on their supply chain. This introduces a lot of issues into the supply chain. To sum all this up, no wonder people's advice when you hit critical mass as an e-commerce company is just go to Netsuite or Acumatica, SAP, Dynamics 365, or build your custom system. They don't even know of any other solution that could service all of these needs for a reasonable cost. It doesn't exist. The only reason why Netsuite can technically handle this type of supply chain is because they were built to service the whole gamut of this old, antiquated supply chain, but they weren't built for the modern brand. That's the point. You have to super glue 5 different functionalities from 20 different separated modules so that it can actually work. It's super clunky, it costs tons of money, and most importantly, they don't understand you or your business's evolution. Luminous is my supply chain software. We're building with the experience of the modern day e-commerce brand front of mind. We want a software that gives you all of the benefits of a massive system without introducing all of the friction that comes with it. We also want to help you make this decision at the right time. In other words, we will work with you to make sure that the friction and processes that you're introducing with this new system actually makes sense for you and your business. We don't want you to overcommit. My goal in starting to produce content as well is to just simply provide value to e-commerce founders and operators. My belief is that most e-commerce founders and operators, like me, make tech decisions out of ignorance or just misguided advice. I feel like I have a unique background in supply chain, e-commerce, ops, and now I'm very deep into the supply chain software space. I feel like my experience can help somebody in some way. If you want me to highlight some cool cost-effective tools that you didn't even know existed, or if you just want to follow the journey of Luminous as we grow. Also, book a call with me if you think that you're a good fit for Luminous. Would love to chat. Thanks, guys. Peace.